Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, the show where we take the chaotic signal of the future and decode it into something you can actually use. I'm your host, and today we are looking at a week that feels a little distinct. It's not just about the gadgets that dropped, it's about where those gadgets are sitting.
And I'm joining you to parse through the noise. It is Saturday, January 31st, 2026. And you're right, there is a distinct texture to the news this week. If you look at the stack of reports our research team compiled, you stop seeing devices in the traditional sense. You stop seeing things you carry, and you start seeing things that you inhabit.
That distinction, that's exactly why we titled today's look at the future Strapped In.
Right.
Now, normally, when I hear that phrase, I'm thinking of a roller coaster. I'm thinking of a rocket launch. It implies a lack of control, or at least a surrender to momentum. You buckle up, and the machine takes you somewhere.
That's a totally valid interpretation, but in the context of human-computer interaction, HCI, we're using strapped in to describe a specific threshold. We are moving from what I'd call level 2 integration to level 3.
Okay, let's define those levels before we get into the hardware, because I think a lot of people assume we're already at the peak of integrations
Right.
because we sleep with our phones.
Not even close. Level 1 was the era of the tool. You pick up a calculator, you use it, you put it down. It is entirely external.
Right.
Level 2 is the era of the accessory. That's where we have been for the last decade, really. The smartwatch, the fitness tracker, it's on your body, it observes you, but it's still fundamentally a separate entity. It's a satellite orbiting your wrist.
And level 3, where does that take us?
Level 3 is integration. It's when the technology begins to leverage your biology as part of its own operating system. It's not just counting your steps, it's reading the electrical intent of your nervous system before your muscles even fire.
Wow.
It's not just sitting on your face, it's rewriting the photons hitting your retinas. Strapped in means the boundary between the user and the interface is dissolving.
That is a heavy concept to hang a Saturday morning on. But looking at the roadmap, the evidence is there. We have a lot to cover. We are going to look at the glass wars, which heated up significantly this week between Samsung and TCL. We're also going to discuss the invisible interface, how we move from touch screens to neural inputs.
And we have a medical breakthrough regarding paralysis that honestly feels like magic, but we'll explain the engineering behind it.
And finally, we'll look at smart fabrics, actual smart fabrics.
So the mission for Tomorrow Unveiled today is to understand the mechanics of this disappearance. We want to look at how the tech is vanishing into the background while becoming exponentially more capable.
Let's start with the visual layer then, the AR landscape. For the better part of 2 years, the industry has been waiting for Samsung to make a real move. We've seen prototypes, we've seen patents, but this week, we finally got something concrete.
We did. This came out of their Q4 2025 earnings call. Usually earnings calls are, incredibly dry recitations of margins and growth sectors. But Song Cho, an executive in the mobile experiences division, went on record.
And he didn't just say, we're working on it, did he?
No, not at all. He confirmed that the next generation AR glasses are officially slated for a 2026 launch. That single statement turns the vaporware into a product roadmap.
Okay, that's a big deal.
But what's more interesting to me than just the announcement itself is the specific technical data our research team was able to correlate with this. We're seeing model numbers SMO200P and SMO200J appearing in regulatory filings.
Okay, model numbers are fine for the supply chain folks, but let's talk about the silicon. The filing suggests these are powered by the Qualcomm AR1 chipset,
Which is pretty much the industry standard for lightweight glasses right now. But here is the number that jumped out at me, and I know it jumped out at you too.
a battery.
The battery capacity, 155 milliamp hours.
155. I want to pause on that because it sounds absurdly low. My smartwatch has a bigger battery. My earbuds might even have a comparable battery. If this device is supposed to be next gen, how is it running for more than 20 minutes on a battery the size of a Tic Tac?
And that is the critical skepticism to have.
Yeah.
If this were a standalone device, if it were trying to be a computer on your face, like say, the Apple Vision Pro or the older HoloLens 155 milliOI, would be useless. It wouldn't even finish the boot sequence.
So what is the play here? What's the strategy?
The play is distributed compute. The glasses aren't the computer. The glasses are just a sensor array and a display driver.
Oh, okay.
The heavy lifting, the processing, the rendering, the AI crunching that's all happening on the Galaxy phone in your pocket. The glasses are just the windshield. The phone is the engine.
That makes sense for the processing part, but it still limits the display, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't blast high brightness projections constantly on that kind of power budget.
Precisely. And that tells us exactly what the use case is. This isn't for watching The Lord of the Rings in IMAX quality on the bus.
Right.
This is for snackable information. Heads-up navigation, translation overlays, notification triage. It's an augmentation layer, not a replacement layer.
The executive, Song Cho, he used the phrase rich, immersive, multimodal AI experiences. Now, multimodal is a buzzword that gets thrown around in every press release from Silicon Valley to Shenzhen. But in this specific hardware context, what does multimodal actually imply?
In the context of large language models and on-device AI, multimodal refers to the fusion of different sensory streams. A standard AI is unimodal text in, text out, or voice in, voice out.
Right. Simple input, simple output.
Multimodal means the AI is ingesting the video feed from the 12MP camera, the audio from the microphones, and the gaze data from the internal sensors all at the same time.
So it's seeing what I see.
It's cross-referencing them. So if you are looking at a leaky pipe under your sink and you ask, how do I fix this? The AI isn't just listening to your voice, it's analyzing the visual of the pipe, identifying the material. Is it PVC or copper? It's seeing the wrench in your other hand, and it's understanding the full context of the repair.
So it effectively triangulates reality.
It builds a contextual model of your immediate environment. That is the level 3 integration we were talking about. It shares your sensory inputs.
While Samsung is promising this for later in 2026, TCL, they decided not to wait. They dropped the Rainio Air 4 Pro on January 25th. And looking at the specs, they are taking a very different approach.
A completely different approach. Samsung is playing the long ecosystem game tying you to the Galaxy phone. TCL is playing the visual fidelity game, and the price point is just aggressive, $299.
That is impulse buy territory for early adopters. It really is. But the headline feature here is the display. Native HDR10 support. Again, I know HDR from buying a television high dynamic range. It means better contrast. But why is HDR the killer feature for AR glasses?
This brings us to the physics of blending. In augmented reality, the biggest challenge is making digital objects look like they actually belong in the physical world. If you project a virtual arrow onto a street, and that street is bathed in sunlight, a standard display looks washed out. It looks like a translucent ghost.
Because the sun is just brighter than the screen.
Exactly. The ambient light washes out the projection. HDR10 support means these micro OLED panels can hit peaks of 1,200 nits of brightness.
1,200 nits. Just for context, a decent laptop screen is maybe 400 or 500 nits.
Right, so you have this extreme brightness for the highlights, but because it's OLED, you also have perfect blacks.
And an AR black just renders as transparent.
Exactly. Right? So that high contrast means the edges of the digital object are incredibly crisp, and the object itself appears solid and opaque against the real world. It anchors the illusion. Without high dynamic range, AR always feels like a hologram. With it, it starts to feel like reality.
There's another feature on the Rainio that caught my eye, mostly because it addresses the biggest social friction of wearable tech. They partnered with Bang & Olufsen for the audio, which is fancy, sure, but they included something called Whisper Mode 2.0.
This is a great piece of acoustic engineering. Really clever. The problem with open-ear speakers, which these glasses use so you don't have things jammed in your ear canal, is sound leakage.
Right, everyone on the train can hear your podcast.
Which makes you a public nuisance. Yes. Whisper mode utilizes phase cancellation. It's the same principle as noise-canceling headphones, but inverted.
Inverted. How so?
The glasses project the audio into your ear, but they also project an inverted sound wave, an anti-noise signal outward into the room.
So the sound waves physically cancel each other out once they leave the immediate vicinity of your ear.
Destructive interference. The peaks of the leaking sound wave meet the valleys of the cancellation wave, and the net result is zero or near zero. It creates a privacy bubble around your head.
That's essential if we want these devices to be socially acceptable.
It really is.
Social acceptance is the final boss for all of this. Just ask Google Glass. But speaking of companies trying to make AR a real business, the Snapchat parent company made a corporate move this week that signals a shift in strategy.
Yes, they spun off Specs Inc. as a wholly owned subsidiary.
Usually a spinoff is a way to offload a failing division or maybe protect the main stock price from a risky bet. Is that what's happening here?
It's likely a bit of both, but I think it's primarily about valuation and focus. By separating Specs Inc., Snap is signaling that hardware isn't just a marketing gimmick for the app anymore. It allows the hardware division to raise its own capital, have its own P&L, and operate like a startup. It tells the market, we believe AR hardware is a viable standalone business.
So the visual layer is maturing. We had the hardware roadmap, but there is a huge missing piece of the puzzle. If I'm wearing smart glasses, how do I control them? I don't have a mouse, I don't have a keyboard, and I definitely don't want to be the person walking down the street tapping my temple or waving my arms at invisible menus.
That is the gorilla arm problem.
Gorilla arm. I haven't heard that one.
It's an old industry term from the early days of touchscreens. If you have to hold your arms up in front of your face to interact with a vertical interface for any length of time, your shoulders burn, your blood flow changes, and your arms feel heavy, like a gorilla's.
Okay, yeah. Ergonomically disastrous.
Completely.
So we need an input method that doesn't require lifting our hands.
Uh-huh.
This brings us to segment 2 and the invisible interface. Specifically, a company called Wearable Devices, Ltd., and their Mudra technology.
This is, in my opinion, the most futuristic piece of tech we are discussing today. They showcase the Mudra Link and a live neural intent visualizer.
Neural intent. It sounds like telepathy.
It functions like it, but the biology is grounded in something called surface nerve conductance, or SNC.
Okay, we need to distinguish this from EMG because electromyography reading muscles has been around for a long time. The Myo armband did that 10 years ago. How is SNC different?
It all comes down to the signal chain. When your brain decides to move a finger, it generates an electrical impulse in the motor cortex. That signal, the efferent signal, travels down the spinal cord and into the nerve bundles of the arm, specifically the ulnar and median nerves.
Okay, makes sense.
EMG waits for that signal to hit the muscle fibers. When the signal hits the muscle, chemical gates open, the muscle contracts, and that creates a large electrical spike. EMG reads that spike. It reads the result of the command.
So it reads the actual twitch?
Exactly. SNC is tapping the wire before it hits the speaker. It detects the ionic potential changes in the nerve bundle at the wrist as the signal is traveling through it.
But neural signals travel incredibly fast. What is the time difference we're talking about here? Is it even noticeable?
Nerve conduction velocity is about 50 to 60 meters per second. But because of the electrochemical delay at the neuromuscular junction, the time it takes for the muscle to actually respond, SNC can detect the intent to move roughly 10 to 50 milliseconds before the finger physically moves.
50 milliseconds doesn't sound like much.
In terms of human perception, it's instantaneous. In terms of computing, it's an eternity. It allows the system to predict the click. It means you can have microgestures.
Define a microgesture for the listener. What does that look like?
Imagine your hand is in your pocket, or maybe it's resting on your lap under a table. You don't need to lift it. You don't need to make a big waving motion. You just apply the slightest pressure between your thumb and index finger. A sub-millimeter movement. Maybe you don't even fully move it. You just tense the muscle to move it.
And the band picks that up.
Mudra picks up that neural spike and translates it into a select command on your glasses.
That completely solves the social problem. I can control my interface without looking like I'm conducting an orchestra.
Exactly. It decouples the input from physical exertion.
Mm-hmm.
And they announced a partnership with Rock AR glasses to integrate this. It's the mouse of the spatial computing era.
While Mudra is giving us a new way to interact, Garmin seems to be betting on no interaction at all. There was a significant leak this week regarding a new device called the Garmin Circa.
The Circa is fascinating because it is a subtraction. It's a smart band, but it is entirely screenless.
Which flies in the face of the current trend where everything needs a bright, beautiful AMOLED display.
It aligns with the concept of ambient computing. Think about the user fatigue we all feel. You look at your watch to check the time, you see a notification for an email, you get stressed, you open your phone, and suddenly you've lost 20 minutes down a rabbit hole.
With the attention trap. Yeah, I know it well.
Garmin is betting that a specific demographic, the high-performance athlete, the biohacker, wants the data but hates the distraction. They want the heart rate variability, the HRV, the sleep tracking, the stress scoring, but they want it all collected passively.
So it's purely a data logger.
It's a logger that syncs to the cloud. You review the data on your own terms later in the day or the week. It competes with Whoop, but with Garmin's sensor pedigree. It's saying, we will monitor you, but we won't bother you.
It's so interesting that we have these two divergent paths emerging at the same time. One path, like the AR glasses, puts the internet directly over your eyes. The other path, the screenless band, tries to hide the technology completely.
And yet both are forms of strapped in. One immerses you in information, the other immerses the computer in your physiology.
We are covering some mind-bending tech today, from neural interfaces to smart fabrics.
It's certainly keeping us busy.
And just a quick note for everyone tuning in, if you're watching us on YouTube and you're finding this insightful, Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and consider hitting that new hype button to help us reach more viewers.
And of course, be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the future.
And for our audio listeners, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled.
It truly helps us reach new listeners.
We really do want to hear your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, leave a comment and let us know what you think about this invisible interface idea. Would you wear a device you can't interact with? Okay, now we need to shift gears a bit. We've talked about consumer gadgets, convenience, entertainment, but the strapped-in concept has a much more profound application in medicine. This brings us to segment 3.
This is the core of the episode for me. Everything else is a toy compared to this. We need to talk about the study from APL Bioengineering regarding non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, BCIs for paralysis.
We've covered BCIs before on Tomorrow Unveiled, usually involving Elon Musk's Neuralink or Synchron. But those involve surgery. They involve craniotomies drilling into the skull to place electrodes directly on the brain tissue.
Which carries massive risk. Infection, rejection, scar tissue buildup. The holy grail of BCI has always been a non-invasive solution, a cap you can just put on.
But the skull's a problem, isn't it? It's a thick piece of bone. It blocks the electrical signals.
It acts as a low-pass filter. It blurs the electrical noise coming from the neurons. Trying to read detailed neural commands from outside the skull is like trying to listen to a specific conversation in a crowded stadium from the parking lot. The signal is just lost in the noise.
So how did this team at APL Bioengineering solve that?
They used a high-density EEG cap, which isn't new, but the breakthrough was in the signal processing. They focused on restoring function for patients with spinal cord injuries. In these patients, the brain is perfectly healthy, the legs are healthy, the spinal cord, the bridge connecting them, is severed.
So the command walk is being screamed by the brain, but it never reaches the legs.
Exactly. The system detects that motor intent via the EEG cap. It decodes the intention, I want to move, and wirelessly bypasses the injury, sending a command directly to a spinal cord stimulator that's implanted below the brake.
It's a digital detour, a bypass.
Yes. But here is the specific engineering challenge they overcame, and it's brilliant. The motor cortex, the strip of brain that controls movement, is arranged like a map. The area that controls your hands is huge and sits right on the surface of the brain near the skull.
So it's an easier signal to hear.
Much easier. That's why we've seen mind-controlled robotic arms for a while now. But the area that controls the legs...
Let me guess, it's deep.
It's located deep inside the longitudinal fissure, the crack between the two hemispheres of the brain. It's buried.
So the signal is weak, and it's buried under layers and layers of other brain activity.
Precisely. To extract that specific signal non-invasively is a monumental signal-to-noise ratio problem. The team used advanced machine learning algorithms to train the system. They had to teach the computer to differentiate between resting-state brainwaves and the very specific motor intent brainwaves for the lower extremity.
And they succeeded.
They achieved a high degree of accuracy in distinguishing move versus rest. Now, they aren't yet at the point where they can distinguish lift left toe versus lift right heel with perfect clarity through the skull. That's the next hurdle.
Of course.
But simply being able to volitionally trigger the spinal stimulator just by thinking about walking without brain surgery, that transforms a paralysis diagnosis.
It moves it from a biological dead end to a hardware management issue. And we know hardware iterates much, much faster than biology.
That's the hope. Wearable cures. That's the dream.
Speaking of biological management, let's look at stress. We all say we're stressed, but physiologically, what does that actually mean? And can a wearable really understand it?
This brings us to the study from UC Irvine published in Nature Communications. They developed the SQCSS.
The Smart Quantitative and Comprehensive Stress Assessor. It just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Hey, scientists are not known for their branding, but the tech is brilliant. Most wearables today, your Apple Watch, your Garmin, they guess your stress based on heart rate variability or HRV.
Right. If the time between my heartbeats is constant, I'm stressed because my sympathetic nervous system is in charge. If it varies a lot, I'm relaxed.
That's the general rule. But HRV is a proxy. It's a downstream effect, and it's easily confused. If you run up a flight of stairs, your heart rate spikes and your variability drops. The watch thinks you're having a panic attack, but you're just exercising.
It's physical stress, not psychological stress. It can't tell the difference.
Exactly. But the SQC SAS is a multimodal sensor. It measures the electrical stuff like HRV, but it also performs wet science. It analyzes your sweat.
Just doing on-body chemistry, like a little lab on a patch.
It uses enzymatic sensors to detect cortisol. Cortisol is the definitive molecular biomarker for stress. There's no ambiguity. By cross-referencing the HRV data with the real-time cortisol levels, the device can subclassify the stress.
So it knows if I'm terrified of a deadline or if I just did a burpee.
Correct. If HRV is weird but your cortisol is low, it concludes that's physical exertion. If your HRV is weird and your cortisol is spiking, it knows that's psychological anxiety.
And that distinction matters because the treatment or the intervention is completely different.
Precisely. This is the move from personalized data, which is just here's a graph of your numbers, to precision medicine. If the device knows it's anxiety, it can prompt a breathing exercise. If it knows it's exertion, it might prompt hydration or rest. It closes the feedback loop intelligently.
But for any of this to work, the neural bands, the sweat patches, the AR glasses, we have a fundamental material problem. Silicon chips are rigid. Humans are soft and squishy. If you tape a computer to your skin, it eventually gets uncomfortable or it breaks.
That is the mechanical mismatch of bioelectronics. And that leads us perfectly into segment 4, materials science.
There was a paper in the journal Nature on January 28th that detailed the FLXI chip.
A fully flexible digital AI processor.
We've seen flexible circuits before, but usually they're simple sensors. This is a processor.
What?
Like, it can think.
It's a functional AI accelerator. But the headline spec isn't even the flexibility, it's the power consumption. 2.52 milliwatts.
2.5 milliwatts. We were just complaining about the 155 millitera battery in the Samsung glasses being small. 2.52 milliwatts is incredibly low power.
It's microscopic power usage. And yet, in their test case, it achieved 99.2% accuracy in detecting cardiac arrhythmia.
Why does this ultra-low power matter so much?
It enables edge computing on the skin. Right now, if you want a wearable to analyze your heart rhythm with AI, it usually records the EKG data and sends it to the cloud via Bluetooth and your phone's LTE.
Which burns battery and, more importantly, broadcasts your private health data.
Exactly. The FLXI chip does the thinking right on the sticker, on your body. The data never has to leave you. The processing happens locally, it's faster, it saves battery, and it's infinitely more private.
But if we want the ultimate invisible wearable, we need to talk about Fudan University. They aren't making chips you stick on your skin. They're making chips you can wear as clothes.
Fiber integrated circuits, FICs. This is the sci-fi dream made real. They managed to integrate 10,000 transistors into a single thread.
Hold on. 10,000 transistors in a single fiber.
In a single fiber that can be woven into fabric. We are not talking about gluing a little chip to a shirt. The fiber is the chip.
The obvious question here, and the one that always kills smart fabrics, is the laundry. I am not going to hand wash my computer shroom with distilled water and, fairy dust. I'm going to throw it in the machine with the towels.
And that is usually where these technologies fail. The mechanical stress of a washing machine, the twisting, the water pressure, it just destroys the delicate connections. But Fudan's team used a coaxial structure.
Coaxial, like a cable TV wire, with the layers.
A very similar concept. The active components, the gate, source, and drain of the transistors are wound internally and shielded by outer layers of polymer. It creates a kind of armor for the electronics.
So did it survive the spin cycle?
It withstood 100 wash cycles. But even more impressive to me, it withstood ironing.
Ironing. That's direct heat. Heat usually destroys electronics.
Exactly. The thermal stability is the real breakthrough here. If you can iron it, it's a real garment. This means we can have shirts that act as health monitors or sleeves that act as touch pads without bulky battery packs or delicate wiring harnesses.
But then how do you power a shirt?
Yeah.
Do I plug my jacket into the wall at night?
You could, but the University of Surrey published research on self-powered sensors using something called boraphene nanofibers.
Boraphene. It sounds like something from the periodic table of a comic book.
It's very real. It's a 2D nanomaterial like graphene, but made of boron. It's incredibly strong and conductive. They used it to build triboelectric nanogenerators, or 10Ns.
Okay, break that down for me. Triboelectric.
It's the science of static electricity. When materials rub together or separate, they generate a charge. 10Ns are designed to harvest that energy very efficiently.
So movement equals power.
But here's the kicker. Boraphene is so sensitive, it can harvest energy from subtle movements.
Huh?
Not just running or walking. We're talking about the expansion of your chest when you breathe, or the twitch of a muscle.
So just the act of existing provides the voltage.
Yes, they're pitching smart pajamas. Imagine a garment that monitors sleep apnea, tracking your breathing rate and depth all night long, powered solely by the movement of that breathing.
No battery to charge, no low-power blinky light keeping you awake at night.
It solves the compliance issue. People start using health trackers because they forget to charge them. If the device runs on your own kinetic energy, it never dies as long as you are alive.
That is both poetic and also very, very efficient.
It is a closed loop.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have glasses that see for us with Samsung and TCL. We have wristbands that read our neural intent from Mudra. We have chips that bend with FLXXI and clothes that power themselves from Suri's team.
It's a complete ecosystem. And it leads us to the final segment, implications. Where is all of this going?
Samsung used a specific term in their presentation that stood out to me, the Care Companion.
It sounds friendly, doesn't it? Like a little digital pet.
It does, but it signals a fundamental shift. We are moving from wearables being fitness coaches, just telling you to run faster, to medical guardians.
We saw this with the Eli Health Thermometer as well. The focus is shifting to longevity, fertility, and chronic disease management. These devices are becoming the dashboard for your biological engine.
But dashboards imply data. And if the data is this intimate, if it's my neural intent, my cortisol levels, my sleep apnea patterns, who owns it? Who sees it?
That is the Level 3 privacy crisis. We saw the Clutch report released on January 28th. It stated that 74% of wearable users are concerned about data privacy.
Honestly, that number feels low to me. It should be 100%.
I agree. Think about the Mudra band again for a second. It reads the intent to move. That means it is reading a neural signal before you have physically acted on it.
So if I get angry in a meeting, and I have the fleeting impulse to slam my fist on the table, but I don't do it, the band still saw the spike.
The band saw the spike. The cloud might see the spike. Does your insurance company get to know that you have poor impulse control? Does your employer get to know that your cortisol spiked every time you spoke to your supervisor?
That is a dystopian HR nightmare. We noticed your biomarkers indicate stress during the Monday stand-up. We're going to need you to work on your resilience.
Exactly. It creates a kind of transparency that we might not be evolutionarily equipped to handle. And it leads to the agentic future. Samsung and Google are pushing agentic AI systems that act on your behalf.
So the AI notices my cortisol is high,
Mm,
and it cancels my next meeting for me.
maybe. Or it orders you comfort food from a delivery app. Or it locks your car so you can't drive while agitated.
It optimizes you, but it also removes your agency.
That is the trade-off of being strapped in. You get superpowers, augmented vision, telepathic control, perfect health monitoring, but you become part of a system that is managing you.
It brings us right back to the question I asked at the very beginning. If the device knows what I want before I do, and it knows how I feel better than I do, am I the driver or am I the passenger?
We are building a nervous system that extends outside of our own bodies, and we're just now figuring out who is actually at the controls.
That is a thought to chew on while you're putting on your triboelectric pajamas tonight.
Indeed.
We're going to wrap it up there. This has been a deep dive into what feels like the week of integration.
A fascinating week, truly.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell. If you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled.
It truly helps us reach new listeners. And let us know your thoughts. Are you ready to strap in? Or are you staying at level 1 with your calculator?
We love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, leave a comment and let us know what you think about the idea of neural interfaces reading your mind. Until next time, stay curious.